Hi guys, welcome back to G Chats with your host, me, G. I'm so happy to have you guys here. I really hope that you guys can't hear my fan in this episode because if you didn't know, it's like 70 degrees in Pennsylvania, which I'm so happy about. Everyone who knows me knows that spring is my season. Like I come alive in the springtime and it's like 70 degrees today. So I have on a tank top. I got my fan on because the heat in my office is still blowing. And I'm like, we got to get this situated because I don't want to be sweating. I want to be nice, cool. I want the breeze. I'm going to get my lunch after this episode, but I'm really, really excited to do this episode. Got me hitting my microphone stand. I'm really excited for this episode because my team put together a list of Reddit OB horror stories or like crazy experiences. And I'm so excited. So this is going to be very commentary, very reaction based. I have not looked at these. I haven't seen them. I have no idea what's on these. I don't know what stories there are. I literally have not even touched them. All I've done was sent the PDF to my iPad. That's all I've done. I have not looked at them, read them, nothing. I didn't even glance at them. So you guys are going to be getting my raw reaction to these stories. We thought that this would be a really cool episode and a fun one just to get my impression and my first reaction on these stories and maybe offer some advice if I even can, because I'm sure some of them are probably like from an experience, something that already happened and it's not like you're going back. But if there is a potential to go back or for whatever the reason is, I can offer some kind of advice. I will, but you guys are going to get my raw, honest reactions on camera. So I'm really excited and I hope that you guys enjoy this episode. So I don't want to keep the intro too long. Let's get into it. So the very first one, horrible periods my whole life. Intense pain, super heavy bleeding, and the clots don't even get me started. The pain every month was debilitating. Doctor after doctor threw pills at me, suggested birth control that made me crazy, told me to double down on Midol. I kept saying this isn't normal, something is wrong here, but every doctor dismissed my issues, minimized my pain, and said they didn't see anything wrong. Finally, at age 38, a doctor at Planned Parenthood actually listened to me. She believed me. She did a vaginal ultrasound, and what do you know? A fucking fibroid the size of an orange. It was right there. Even I could see it. If anyone had bothered to look, they would have seen it as well. She ordered more tests, and look at that. PCOS as well. That is insane. And I honestly, it just highlights how dismissive our like the medicine field is, and even gynecology. A lot of things are said to be like, oh, that's the way it is, especially with like heavy periods. And I know even for me, I used to get really heavy periods when I was younger, and I still do, but they were debilitating. Like I would miss class when I was in college, and my whole life it kind of has been chalked up to, well, that's the way my mom, my grandma, my aunts are, like we're all like this, so it's normal. It turns out having debilitating cramps to the point where you can't walk isn't exactly normal. Periods should not be that painful. And it's not a tolerance issue, because I feel like then it's made out to be like you're weak and your ancestors had to deal with it without ibuprofen. And it's like, hold on, let's rewind, because periods, if we look at the science of it, periods should not be that painful. So the fact that this was being told to a doctor and all it took was an intravaginal ultrasound, and honestly even a pelvic ultrasound, if they would have done an ultrasound to the pelvic area even on top, like externally, they would have seen a fibroid. Like they definitely did not need to do a transvaginal ultrasound to see this. So the fact that even just it took the doctors and they're like, let's do this, for them to see it and recognize it and do something about it highlights the neglect in medicine. So this sucks. And fibroids can cause a lot of pain during your periods, during like even when you're not menstruating, throughout your cycle, through pregnancy. Like fibroids can be so freaking painful. So this shit sucks that you had one and you didn't even know. And then finally, now I think she said 38, she finally discovered it. And then after running tests, I'm sure that the fibroid, it's probably linked to hormonal imbalances. It makes sense. A lot of people don't recognize that there is a connection between your uterus growing said enlargements and lumps on the uterus or in the uterus. Developing this is connected to your hormones and your hormonal levels. So it makes a whole lot of sense that this is connected. Her hormones are connected to it. I think a lot of people think of PCOS and they immediately think of cysts on the ovaries, and that's not what this is. And sometimes PCOS isn't fully understood. So sometimes this imbalance in the hormone can suggest other things like fibroids. So that is normal. It's not out the question. So this is just crazy. So story number 2 is I had a LLETZ procedure. I don't know if I've heard of that acronym. I think it's probably, I don't know if she says it in here, but it sounds similar to the LEAP procedure. So I'm thinking that has something to do with her cervix. Okay, it does. Okay, we'll get there. So this person, she says, I had a LLETZ procedure a few weeks back, and I asked the gynecologist beforehand if maybe we should remove my copper IUD before we got started. He insisted that it could stay in and that he could just trim off the wires. He's the professional vagina doctor, so I believe that removal wouldn't be necessary. For those who don't know, a LLETZ is a large loop excision of the transformation zone, so it's effectively electrical cauterization of precancerous cells from my cervix. They used an electrified metal loop to burn off chunks of flesh while you're awake. The smell is unnerving. I know about the LEAP procedure and this procedure because my mother had it done when she had precancerous cells. She, I believe, was put to sleep, but I have issues with the whole procedure in itself. They really do just butcher the hell out of your cervix. So that's like opinion number 1. So anyway, my gyno snags the copper IUD with this electric loop while he's rummaging around, and I get an almighty zap through the IUD to my uterus. Oh my God! My whole body arches and all my muscles tense up. Oh my God, he literally fucking electrocuted her. I spit the speculum out like a ping pong trick and instantly feel hot blood gushing all over the table. Oh my God, oh my God. No, this can't be fucking real. Oh my God. I can hear it dripping onto the floor. My husband has started frantically rubbing and squeezing my hand, mostly to calm himself down more than me. The gyno is giving me panic eyes and says, ma'am, I need you to calm down so I can reinsert the speculum and stop this bleeding. I've never been less calm in my whole life, so he has to just sort of brute the device back in and finish the job. No, this is over. The story's over. Oh my God. Okay, if you guys are unaware of what just happened, the copper IUD and oh my God. Okay. So the device that they're using to basically extract the abnormal cells from her cervix is essentially a electrical, like it's a wire, okay? It's a metal wire that is electrically charged and hot. And they basically carve your cervix with this tool. Essentially, this tool caught the copper IUD with the electrical loop, and basically I guess she got like electrocuted in her uterus. There was an almighty zap through the IUD to the uterus. She said her whole body arched and all the muscles tensed up, and the speculum, like she tensed up so much that the speculum, the thing that opens up the vaginal canal, just like spit out of her vagina, and then blood was just everywhere. Oh my God. I have never heard of this in my life. Oh my God. Oh my God. I am stunned. I cannot believe that this just happened. This is horrifying. Horrifying. Like you could probably sue. You could probably sue. I don't know what happened. I don't know where. I need to ask my team for this Reddit story, because if I can, I want to respond to it, because literally the gyno's saying, ma'am, I need you to calm down. Calm down. She is literally gushing blood. She is I'd be damned. Let him tell me to calm down. I would kick him with my 2 feet that are up. I would kick him with one and then kick him with the other. I would sucker punch him with both of my legs. Are you seriously telling me to calm? There's blood gushing everywhere. You just electrocuted this woman's uterus. Oh my God. Oh my God. Where's that sound from TikTok that's like, oh my God. Oh my, literally what's happening in my head. Wow. Okay. All right. On to the next. The first time I had a pap smear, it was all right. Oh my God. I just made a TikTok video literally in this outfit talking about why you should get a pap smear done. So somebody I know just like fucked up a pap smear. I'm prepared. The first time I had a pap smear, it was all right. Then I was sexually assaulted. Oh no. And I guess my body no longer wanted to cooperate. And the second time was not pleasant. Doctor wasn't nice about it either. Literal tears. It was abnormal, but no way in hell I was going back. 10 years later, I try again. This doctor was even worse, and she kept yelling at me to relax because I was totally doing that to make her life difficult on purpose, she says sarcastically. Also, abnormal. I never went back. It's been 15 years of abnormal results. Maybe I just have the world's lowest growing cancer, but I'm not going back. Oh my God, this just broke my heart. This just broke my heart. This is so sad because, obviously she's getting abnormal results. And basically, if you guys don't know, and it's so ironic because I just made a TikTok about this, essentially what a pap smear is looking for is abnormal cells in your cervix. And the idea is that you want to catch these abnormal cells and treat them, get them out before they turn into cancer. So abnormal cells doesn't always mean, oh, you have cancer. It just means that they could turn into cancer. They could turn into cancer for things like because of HPV, which is the human papilloma virus. So this virus is responsible for most abnormal cells turning into cancer. So in a pap smear, what they will do is they will collect epithelial cells, which they use this brush, and they will basically just touch the part where the inner cervix and outer cervix connects. So they don't go into your cervix. You don't need to dilate your cervix, nothing. It's just that outside portion. If you've ever seen a demonstration of a cervix, it almost looks like a sphincter, like a butthole. They literally just rub it with a soft brush or a spatula, and epithelial cells are on your cervix. They naturally regenerate and shed. So it's not an invasive procedure. They don't need to dig for these epithelial cells. They're just on the cervix, the cervical opening. This brush, the spatula will rub against it. They pull it out, they collect it, and they test these samples. And in testing it, they will also run an HPV test. They basically want to see, do you have any strain of HPV? There's HPV 16 and HPV 18 that are largely responsible for causing cervical cancer. There are so many other strains of HPV that can cause cancer or don't cause cancer at all, but is a virus that can live dormant inside of you for years and then just pop up out of nowhere. And you could protect yourself against HPV with something like the Gardasil vaccine. This came out in the later 2000s. Yeah, so I want to say the 2010s is when it came out, or 2009. So you can get vaccinated with Gardasil to protect you against HPV. It doesn't protect you against every single strain, but it protects you against most of them. So ultimately, in a pap smear, they will test those epithelial cells to see if you have abnormal cells, but they're also looking to see if you have HPV. Now, abnormal cells don't always happen because of HPV. Abnormal cells can happen for a number of reasons. Sometimes the cervix changes, whatever the case may be. But that's the whole point in a pap smear, is that we want to catch these abnormal cells, see if they're what stage of precancerous they are, or if they're cancerous to begin with, can they turn into cancer, and then treat it. So cervical cancer is one of the, I don't want to say easiest, but one of the most treatable. That's the best way. The most preventable. I'm sorry. The most preventable cancers to prevent if pap smears are done regularly, because they are so good at catching abnormal cells and then intervening and taking control of these abnormal cells and treating these abnormal cells so that they don't turn into cancer. So cervical cancer is one of the most preventable cancers if you get regular pap smears done. The worst part about this story is that when you do have abnormal cells, not only should those abnormal cells get taken care of, but these abnormal cells means that you should get pap smears more regularly than the average person. So once you hit 21, you can go every 3 years with a pap smear until you have abnormal cells. When you do have abnormal cells, and if those ever get treated, following that, you should get pap smears. I think it starts at first until they make sure that you no longer have abnormal cells. It's every 6 months. And then it transitions to every single year that you get a pap smear done. So she shouldn't be going, 10 years without a pap smear and then never went back. It's been 15 years of abnormal result. Like, this is just so heartbreaking. And it makes sense why her body is rejecting a pap smear. So last episode, if you guys didn't watch it, please do. But I had Dr. Julia Smeltz on the podcast, and we talked about trauma and story and sex and its association and your pelvic floor. And we talked about how the pelvic floor and your mind are so connected. And if there is a traumatizing story behind sex, like sexual assault, your pelvic floor muscles will ingrain that story inside of your nerves, inside of your muscles. And so your body will not be able to fully relax to even allow a penis in for penetration, allow any kind of physical exam. Like, the body is carrying that stress, trauma, and story inside of its pelvic floor, in its mind, that something like a pap smear can be so freaking scary and debilitating, and like there's no way that you can even allow it to happen. And honestly, that is so heartbreaking that this person did not have a doctor to calm them down, to help work through that trauma with them. They obviously have trauma. This makes sense. The body is having a normal reaction to trauma. This makes sense. The idea of like opening up the vagina with the speculum and then putting something in is like traumatizing for this person. They were sexually assaulted. So yes, it definitely has trauma, plays a role in your pelvic floor muscles and your mind. And I would suggest to this person to do pelvic floor therapy, and that could assist with getting their pelvic floor muscles to relax and rewriting the story. They might need some fascial releases. So if the pelvic floor therapist releases the fascia covering their pelvic floor, this can help release some of that trauma that their muscles and their fascia is holding on to. And then their pelvic floor therapist could work through internally examining the muscles, the layers. There's 3 layers. Again, please watch the episode from last week about the pelvic floor with Dr. Julia Smeltz. She's amazing, and we kind of talked about all of this. So this makes so much sense why she's having such a huge reaction to the pap smear. The doctor is such a piece of shit for being so rude and yelling at her to calm down, because there's an obvious story there. And if they made her even remotely comfortable, I'm sure that she would have opened up and they could have worked together to allow the pap smear to happen much nicely, like in a much nicer way. Pap smears aren't supposed to hurt, but when the doctor just goes in, opens up the vagina, shoves a brush in, scrapes her, is like so rough on the cervix, it can cause cramping and discomfort like that. And that further pushes the story. Like, the mind already made up a story that this is unsafe. The vagina and its story is unsafe. And there's further trauma now with a shitty experience of a pap smear. So this just sucks. This whole story sucks. And she has abnormal cells. And again, abnormal cells over time will turn into cancerous cells. So It's just heartbreaking to know that she knows that she has these abnormal cells and won't go back because of how shitty the experiences the doctors made for her and the experience of her abuser. The whole story is heartbreaking. The abuser deserves to be behind bars. The doctors are horrible doctors, and like, your patient comes first. As someone who follows a medical code of ethics, like, your patients are your number one priority, and the fact that they don't care about making this patient feel comfortable, both doctors, and yelled at her and were mean to her and made her feel like she's the problem. Just a shame. Such a shame. People like that don't deserve to be doctors. So this story is just heartbreaking. I hope that she goes a very long life without those cells. I hope she's the world's luckiest person and that these cells don't turn into cancer. But for anybody watching, please, please, please get your pap smears. And I'm not dismissing anybody's experience. I literally just made a TikTok about pap smears. I know that some people have horrible experiences. If you have to keep searching for a doctor, please do so, because pap smears shouldn't hurt. They are necessary and can save your life. Okay, next story. I've been experiencing perimenopause symptoms for around 3 to 4 years, brain fog, dry vagina, low libido, incontinence, and night sweats, among other things, and I have been more or less begging my doctors for help the entire time, almost the whole time, with no relief. During that time, I tried some of the long route solutions recommended by my OBGYN, classes on sex, which didn't tell me anything that I didn't know, pelvic floor exercises, which helped a little bit but were hard to maintain, and then recently I went to a second doctor to try and get another opinion and requested vaginal estrogen. When I explained that I'd been having symptoms and that it's been years of trying things that don't help and that I would really like to try vaginal estrogen, she essentially went into a lecture that if I haven't yet tried watching pornography, been reading erotic novels, and seeing a sex therapist, that I wasn't doing everything I should be doing to improve my own situation. What the fuck? And when I seemed resistant to those 3 things, which I was, and trust me, I have my reasons, she shamed me and waved her hand at my reasons. I tried to kindly explain again that I would like to try the cream. In the end, she prescribed it to me, but only because she thought it might help with the incontinence. Well, after less than a week of using it, it improved my incontinence, fixed my libido, and the dry vagina, possibly other things that were less drastic. I was shocked and was just as confused as to why she was so utterly convinced that my hormone issues could be fixed by pornography and a social worker with a sex therapy certificate. Sorry, but no. Well, that's shitty. Again, horrible doctor experience. I mean, it makes perfect sense that vaginal estrogen cream would work. First of all, incontinence, the urethral opening, is sensitive to estrogen loss. So putting estrogen cream along the entire urethra and even inside of the vagina is very helpful. The vagina, the vaginal opening, can be open and close to the bladder. So this will help. It can help with reaching the bladder, but also it helps with the urethral opening, which is very sensitive to changes in hormones. It's common sense for the most part. I hope that all OBs should know that, and gynecologists should know that when your estrogen dips during menopause, well, hello, the vaginal tissue gets thinner, it gets drier, it becomes less elastic. So there's a number of changes to the vaginal tissue itself, and the tissue issues that happen by the depletion of estrogen show through symptoms like dryness, low libido, burning. Like these are very common symptoms, and it's the body's way of saying, hey, like, my estrogen is low. This is a hormonal change. So I'm like so lost why the doctor was like not believing that a vaginal estrogen cream would help. I mean, obviously I get it. Menopause is a natural thing that happens to our bodies. So it's like, maybe I can see a doctor saying, like, what's the point of putting estrogen in your body if, like, what's supposed to happen is estrogen dips off. But if someone is having a really difficult time with their perimenopause symptoms, you can start for like, oh, estrogen cream every single night, then drop it to every other night, then drop it to twice a week for maintenance so that they can go about their life. At some point when all their hormones balance, they won't need the estrogen cream. But at first, it is a pretty dramatic thing for the endocrine system to go through, something that we're so used to our whole life, a full force estrogen, and then all of a sudden, oh, estrogen plummets, and it's hard. There's a lot of symptoms that are associated with it. So I think that sucks. I don't think a sex therapist is horrible. I've met plenty of amazing sex therapists in my work. I've met up with them and they're amazing and super informative, but it doesn't seem like sex was the problem. So I think it's weird, the suggestion that maybe like she's not being turned on. And I mean, for some people that could be the issue, and like maybe learning how to have comfortable sex during menopause is helpful. So maybe a sex therapist could have been helpful in that instance to help with having more comfortable sex, maybe different lubricants and stuff like that, just to help with sex at this new chapter in your life. But like, to suggest pornography and a sex therapist as the only solution and completely wave your hand at estrogen creams when it's like so obvious that the science of menopause is a hormonal shift kind of makes no sense. So I don't know why the doctor did this. This doctor seems like a weird fucking human. So I don't understand. I mean, I think they could have suggested and offered a sex therapist as like optional and something that someone could do. I mean, it's always good to think of all the things that could help, but to rule out estrogen cream is so weird. Like, people use estrogen creams after having repeated urinary tract infections. So if you have so many UTIs, you can have damage to the urethral tissue. The urinary tract will have damage to the epithelial cells. And so you can repair the urethral opening with estrogen cream. Estrogen cream has been shown to help repair the urethral opening. So like, it's obvious to me that estrogen cream would work. So I'm not really sure why this doctor was so against it, and why, more importantly, that they were pushing pornography. I feel like it's common sense for the most part that pornography isn't real. A lot of the pornography that exists, I don't know if I could say that word. I hope I can. But a lot of that stuff that you see on the internet is fake. It's rehearsed. It's for entertainment. It's not real. So I feel like showing a woman who's going through changes in her vagina, like dryness, burning, thin vaginal tissue, like atrophy, all of this, and then showing them intercourse and making them almost like believe that intercourse needs to be this like vibrant thing, that like it's normal. Sex might be difficult during this new chapter because of the changes in your vagina. I think that's why a sex therapist could be potentially helpful, but not pornography. Like, pornography is not real. It's a lot of times rehearsed, scripted, whatever, and it's exaggerated so that it can give pleasure, but like to the eye, but it's not real. Like, those two people might not be even experiencing pleasure. So I just think that it's a little strange that a doctor would suggest that and completely override estrogen cream. So yeah, I'm sorry for this experience. If any of you are ever having that kind of experience, definitely ask your doctor about vaginal estrogen cream. Okay, next one is, there was a tornado that touched down right in the middle of my exam. 1 minute I was sternuped up, and the next minute my gyno is screaming at me to get dressed because we had to go into the basement of the medical center. I was stuck there for 2 hours with nothing to do except talk about my vagina to my gynecologist. Yo, that is crazy. What? Okay, this one's lighthearted. I'm glad that nobody got hurt, but like, imagine you got your legs wide open, doctor all up in your coochie, and then all of a sudden the doctor's like, holy shit, there's a tornado, like, get your clothes on. You like run to the basement. It's so funny because they were probably around other people other patients who were probably getting their vaginas checked, other doctors who were probably all up in the vagina right before the tornado touched down. So this is just like so funny. I'm glad that this was a lighthearted one. This is so funny. I don't even know what I would do if that was ever me. Like, if I I would be, oh my God, I wouldn't stop laughing. That's honestly a story that you and your gyno can carry for the rest of your life. That is so funny. Like and unique. Not a lot of people can say I had a tornado hit the gynecologist's office while my gynecologist was doing the exam in my vagina. All right, I had a cyst on the outside of my vagina. It grew pretty big because I didn't think anything of it until walking became nearly impossible. The only way they could get rid of it was by cutting it open and letting the pus flow out. The pus didn't flow out though. It squirted out right into my gynecologist's face. No! Oh my God, this is like Dr. Pimple Popper, but like in another lifetime. What the hell? I mean, low key, I'm not surprised. Like, this kind of makes sense. Like, you can't guarantee that it was just gonna ooze out. Damn. I wonder though what caused this. I wonder if it was was it an ingrown? Because she says on the outside of the vagina, but where? The lip, the groin, the pubic bone? Where? Was it an ingrown? Or was it just like bacteria and like sweat and debris that caused this? That is crazy. Okay, this is a big paragraph. I had thrush, also known as yeast, that made the outer parts of my labia positively raw. Oh my God, basically adult diaper rash. I had just had my annual pelvic exam plus blood test 4 months prior to this and was STD free. My fiance had just had his annual physical plus blood test for work 2 weeks prior and was also clean. Both of us are and have always been clean, respectable, responsible, sexually active adults. My gyno and NP insists that I have herpes when I tell her what's wrong with me. With no exam, I was still fully dressed. I insist that that's not the issue. That's obviously yeast. I mean, the discharge is hard to copy. It was a rash, not lesions or bumps. I'm really sensitive down there and get infections a lot. This one got out of control because of it, and of course had to occur over the holidays when no one was open to get examined early. She's been my nurse practitioner for 5 years and she should realize this. I explained we've both recently been examined and neither of us have had herpes. She replies, well, all men cheat and he cheated on you. Oh my God. What the hell? Okay, there's a misconception out here that every single vaginal issue is because of sex, and we got to get it together. We need to stop this narrative. I remember when I was younger, I'm not going to lie, I thought that UTIs come from sex too, because the internet literally tells you that. The first advice after the internet is like, oh, pee after sex, or oh, it always links a UTI to sex. And in my studies, I realized that is the biggest misconception. Fully virgin adults, children, doesn't matter, like anyone of all ages, any sexual activity, you can get a UTI. Like it's normal. It's not a sexually transmitted infection. The same happens with BV and the same happens with yeast. So this is an issue that's present within the field itself that we like to blame these infections and these issues on sex all the time. If there's blood work done that is showing that they don't have HSV, which is the herpes simplex virus, if it is not active and it's not showing in the blood test, I don't understand why this doctor would be an asshole and say, all men cheat. That's what it is. Like, if it's not herpes and the blood test is showing that, then why the fuck would you keep reiterating that? Why would you insist that it is? I don't get it. That doesn't make sense to me. Also, yeast does cause a lot of burning and itching. That is normal, especially if yeast infections are common for this individual. I'm not surprised that the external parts, because the discharge can reach the external parts, and I'm sure that she's been using a lot of actives, creams, medication, Monistat, whatever, using all those topicals on your vagina, it's going to cause irritation and make the vagina super, super raw and sensitive. That is so common. It's even common after I've had this experience before where after my period, after all of the use of menstrual pads, sometimes my vagina feels raw. It is normal. It feels raw. It feels sensitive. It feels irritated. It feels dry. That is normal. So it's unfortunate that instead of trying to help this patient relieve their irritation and that rawness they're just pushing like your husband's cheating on you. Like, the results are showing that she's clean from all STIs. She's having a yeast infection. Let's fix the yeast infection. Let's figure out how to restore and maintain the vaginal microbiome, correct this issue, correct maybe even the gut microbiome and the gut health, and let's fix the irritation. Let's add some soothing peptide creams. Let's add estrogen or let's brainstorm ideas to get your vagina back to top tier shape and back to top tier health. Like, why would you insist on this? Some people just don't know how to read a room. And honestly, if this was the doctor trying to be funny, they couldn't be more unfunny. Like, jokes are supposed to be funny, and that wasn't funny. Like, it's not funny at all to suggest and reiterate like, oh, all men cheat. Oh, your husband's cheating on you. Like, the girl's obviously distressed with what's going on with her vagina, and to insinuate that or push that is like so insensitive. So I don't know. Some people are just like dumb. Honestly, some doctors are just stupid. So this was just dumb on the doctor's end. Okay, we have the last one. I went to a gyno, going through the questions, asked how many sexual partners. I say 5. I'm 21 and have been with the same guy for 2 years. He goes, wow, that's a lot, in the most condescending, slut-shaming way. And then went on to tell me he wouldn't be surprised if I had an STD since I got around. Guys, when I tell you that is so unprofessional, I'm not even exaggerating when I say that is so unprofessional. I don't give a shit what your opinion is as a doctor, as a medical professional. If you wouldn't, and I want to know how many bodies he has. First of all, asking her like essentially what your body count is a odd question from a gynecologist. Usually gynecologists and medical professionals will ask, are you sexually active? If you answer yes, the question would be, how many active partners do you have currently? You either answer 1, or if you're like messing around with multiple people, you say 5, whatever the case may be, and that is it. The reason that we as medical professionals need to know this information is to know if you're at an increased risk of an STI, if there's an increased risk that you're transferring microbes from multiple people, if there's an increased risk that you're developing irritation or you're using different spermicides or lubes with other people, just so that we can like get an idea of your sexual history, to get an idea of the state of your vagina. Not that you're dirty or that you get around or that you're a slut. Like, that is just, I don't know, when people like this and have this mindset go into the field of gynecology, I can't help but feel that they really only go into this field to pass judgment and bring the field backwards 10 years. Like, you can't go into the field of gynecology and want to make improvements and advancements with this kind of rhetoric and this kind of logic. Like, what was even the point of you becoming a gynecologist? To slut shame? To body shame? To make people feel bad about themselves? Like, what does it matter if she has 5 bodies? Even if somebody sat down and told me I have 98 bodies, I'm going to want to help bring their vaginas to optimal health. It's less about, oh, you're a slut. It's about the fact that, hey, did you know that like having multiple partners can mean that you're sharing microbes between these partners, which can put your vagina at an increased risk of losing good bacteria. And if you lose this good bacteria, you're at an increased risk of developing things like BV, yeast infections, UTIs, and even at an increased risk of contracting an STI or contracting pelvic inflammatory disease. So like, explaining the science is important, not sitting there and slut shaming and saying like, oh, you get around. Wow. Like, she has 5 partners. She's 21. She's been with the same person for 2 years. Like, honestly, her previous partners are not even important to the conversation in this instance. Like, she got asked, like, she probably got asked, like, how many partners do you actively have? She actively has one partner, and she's been with them for 2 years. That's the concern. If she's tested negative for STIs in the past, run a standard STI test just to make sure that she's safe, clean, and healthy. And that's it. Like, I don't understand what the point of even throwing that in. Again, if this was a doctor trying to be funny, it's so unfunny. It's so unnecessary to the conversation. Even if the doctor had a preconceived notion of somebody who was sexually active with 5 different people in their lifetime, to say that as a doctor is literally gross. But also, I don't even want to give that kind of like out of like, oh, to say it is bad, to think it is bad. Like, that shouldn't cross your mind. I literally have customers who reach out to me for my advice on probiotics and stuff like that all the time. And sometimes some people will get comfortable and be like, oh, I had sex with X amount of people this year or whatever. It's never crossed my mind to be like, 5 people, like 10 people, like it doesn't, that like, cause that's not the point. Like whatever you do with your vagina, it's your vagina. But like, I'm here to give you advice on how to bring your vagina to optimal urinary and vaginal health, whether you're sexually active or not. It doesn't concern me how many sexual bodies and partners that you have. I don't care. You could tell me it's male, it's female, it's whatever. I don't care. I don't care how many. I don't care the gender. I want to give you, like, knowing that information is helpful so that I could give you the best advice to keep your vagina happy and healthy. That's it. So a doctor to even think that after hearing that goes to show that doctors like that should not have a degree. They should not have a license. They should not be practicing. That's just so messed up. So honestly, this episode really shows that we have a long way to go with gynecology and obstetrics. We have to keep improving and pushing forward because people still have outdated ideas and mindsets about female reproductive health. And it's unfortunate, but I'm so glad that I can be doing what I'm doing to help push that old stuff down the drain and bring in a new, fresh voice into the space. But I hope you guys love this video. Let me know if you want more of these. I think we can make this a series and do another episode in a few weeks and share some Reddit stories, reacting to Reddit stories about vaginal health. I think that would be like really cool and really fun. It's lighthearted. Sometimes the topics we talk about are very heavy. So this is a more lighthearted episode, something that's fun to discuss. Not fun, like it's still heavy because there's a lot of like shitty scenarios, but a little more casual and lighthearted. I don't have to do like a crap ton of preparation for it. It's just more of a conversation based episode. So if you guys did like it, please don't forget to thumbs this video up. Leave the comments below if you really did enjoy it. But I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.